Okay, folks, welcome back to the program. This is a treat for you. I don't know why I didn't do this before. This is a channel called Prioritize Your Life. It came out a couple years ago, and now it's just booming. It's got near-death experiences. Some I believe, some I don't. These people are obviously either from Idaho or Utah. I know this guy's name is Wesley, who produces and directs everything. He's also a musician. I don't know his last name. I haven't found it yet. He does have a Patreon account. Yes, it's called Prioritize Your Life. So shout out to them. Check it out. But the story that stands out to me the most was the first one. And it was a guy named Scott Drummond. Anyway, I'm not going to be talking too much on this one because I want you to just listen, watch it, listen, or just listen to the story and tell me if you don't feel that this is real. Just by his genuineness, his authenticity, I feel it, I see it, and I feel it. I've talked to some friends of mine who said that they didn't feel that as much when they watched it. Some even said that they thought it was misleading, but not me. Not me. You guys decide. You be the judge and put it in the comments section, please. I'm always unprepared here. And remember to please subscribe to this channel if you're not already a subscriber. Hit the bell for notifications, and or just go back and check the bell to see if you've got it on notifications and all, so that you get notified when I put out content like this. Like this video, hit the thumbs up, please. Share this video and comment, even if you just say hi. All right, here we go. I'm not going to say too much. I want you just to. I'll say a couple things, but that's about it. Just watch and listen.
I'm super grateful and honored today to have Scott Drummond join us. The background story alone to why we're here today could be an interesting thing enough to talk about. How we ended up here, even that has affected me. But what we're going to actually talk about, I think, has the potential to really help a lot of people. And I'm so honored that you've agreed to be here today. There's moments in some people's lives where they have these big resets. Their priorities shift or something big happens and it just changes everything. And it seems like you've maybe had more than one of those moments in your life. And I've been honored enough to hear a little tiny bit of some of those, but it sounds like most people haven't heard some of these stories. So the one question I wanted to ask you is, why now? Why did you feel like this was a good time to share some of these really kind of personal moments for you?
Well, the thing that kind of brought to mind was what's happening right now with the COVID-19. There's so many people out there that are afraid of what might happen to them. And for me, it's not a fear for me because of what I've gone through before with, passing away for about 20 minutes and seeing things that most people don't get to see. But what I started thinking about after...
Like I said, remember I said that he doesn't come out and say what denomination he is, but I believe this is in Utah or Idaho. And these people are obviously Latter-day Saints. He says he uses Heavenly Father as a term, just the language he uses. So keep that in mind.
For talking to you on the trail that day was how people shouldn't be fearful of death. What it did for me when I was 28 years old was to kind of wake me up and find out where my values are and where I'm sitting with my family and where I am placed with my Father in heaven. You know, at the time I was working for the government, I was working out of town and didn't spend a lot of time at home. And what it did for me was brought me closer to my family. Here I am, almost 67 years old, and I've talked very little about this because it's meant a lot to me, and it's, other than telling maybe a couple of family members and of course my wife, no one knows about what happened. In my mind, it is very vivid every day. I was up on the ski slopes in Park City and having a great time. We were skiing all day, and I was in the lift line, and all of a sudden a lady came down, and she had her poles going every which way and ran into us in the ski line. And well, needless to say, I skied the rest of the day. When we got through, I took my glove off, and down at the car, my thumb was hanging straight down, and it knocked my thumb completely out of the socket, and I knew I had to have something done. It started to hurt once I got into that warm vehicle.
You skied the whole day with your thumb hanging around?
Yes. Yep. I knew I had to get something done. So we scheduled surgery and got prepped. And what I remember most vividly was sitting in the operating room, and the doctor put a sheet between me and my right hand, and my right thumb was tore down, and there was a nurse in there, and the nurse in there made mention to the doctor that she'd never done a tourniquet before and didn't know quite how to change the valves, and the doctor said that he'd talk her through it. Well, in a situation that you put a tourniquet on right here, and you have two valves. One is to tighten it up, one's to loosen the pressure. And what happened was both of them were tightened to begin with, and the nurse undid the one valve, and the pressure started coming back on again, and she opened the second valve and forgot to close the first valve. And all of a sudden I had the sensation of something going up my arm. It crossed into my heart, and next thing I knew, I was above my body watching the operation. What was unique about it was I wasn't by myself. I had someone right beside me watching. And I don't know if this is normal or not, but I watched every stitch that was put into my thumb. I watched the nurse go running out of the room saying that I killed him, and which was, I'm sure, put a lot of fear in her mind that what she did didn't work. But I sat, and even though I never did see the person next to me, I sat right next to him as if I knew that person.
I've heard a lot of people describe that in their near-death experiences, or when they're call them near-death or out-of-body experiences, when they're close to the veil. They feel like there is a chaperone or somebody with them. And it feels like somebody, they always describe it like somebody they've always known, maybe a relative, just a close kinship to that being. They don't necessarily see it, but they know, they have the sensation, the realization that something is with them. Maybe a guide, a sentinel. We always talk about in the temple getting past the sentinels or the angels, Anyway, he goes on. It's very interesting. Pay attention to some of the things that we do in the temple and to what he's talking about too.
But I sat, and even though I never did see the person next to me, I sat right next to him as if I knew that person. And everything was done through the mind. There was no talking. I could hear what the doctor was doing, but I could never hear mouth to mouth what was being said with the person that was next to me. And we sat there and watched the operation, and I can't tell you how long because there was no clock on the wall, or I didn't have a watch on. We watched how serious the doctor was about finishing his surgery on my thumb, and I watched him cut me here and tear a tendon out. I saw him wrap it around my thumb, and I started watching him put me back together. Something that was supposed to be a very simple operation ended up being not so good in the end. We sat there for a little while, and I can remember I was sitting above. I was laying down, and how you lay out with your arm like this, with the sheet right here. And I was sitting right up here above watching the surgery. And then in my mind, I was told, okay, it's time to go. And I remember so vividly I could never look back. I was instructed never to look back again. And the next thing I knew, and it was like a twinkle of an eye, I was standing in a field where the person that was with me was right next to me, but I couldn't see him. And I looked over to the left, and there was some great big tall trees. And I remember they were the most unusual looking trees, a long trunk with the leaves up on top. And there were lots of them. And then to the right of that, which would be still to the left of me, was wildflowers, just beautiful wildflowers. And they were up about to my waist. And I just remember looking and seeing how
Everything that he's describing is something that I've heard other people describe. Now I know some people can mimic other people, but some of these people that I've heard describe like the different colors of flowers, or the many different colors they've never seen on Earth, or walking through a meadow, having something telling them that if they look back, they'll be basically brought back into their body, sucked back into their body, or whatever. A sentinel or a guardian angel with them, all these different things. There's a common theme with them, and I believe them. Most of them, I believe, are telling the truth.
Was wildflowers, just beautiful wildflowers, and they were up about to my waist. And I just remember looking and seeing how beautiful the flowers are, because it's something that I really enjoy is yard work and gardening, and I just remember the vivid colors were just magnificent. And then in front of me, and then to the right, was tall grass that came up probably just about my waist high, and I was just standing there. And the next thing I knew, the person that had escorted me there was not there anymore, and I was by myself.
I'm just going to click random stuff, and something I'm sure is going to come to me, because that's, what I love about this kit.
But it was so peaceful. Everything was really what I remember so vividly was I could see a long ways to my left. I could see a long ways to my right. I wasn't allowed to look back. But in front of me was at the time it seemed like a cloud. It was just a white cloud. And all of a sudden in my mind, I started watching a video of my life. And I saw it from
Another theme.
from the day that I was born until I was 28 years old. Everything that I'd done in my life, good, bad, it didn't matter, because what mattered was that's what I was being judged on, was what I had done. And I remember some of it hurt, but some of it made me feel good. But it was what it was. I had no one there to argue with, no one to say, I didn't do that. No, I did it. But there was a lot of things at that time in my life that I wasn't really as on track on my life as I should have been. It was, at that time in my life, I was working for the government, for the Postal Service at the time, and it was all about getting ahead, making enough money. And I was working, I remember at the time I was working in Jackpot, Nevada, which is way out in the middle of nowhere. And knowing that everything that I was doing was for myself and not for my family. And I think probably out of all of that I watched, it was, some was good, some was bad, but I knew that I had to do better with my life. I remember all of a sudden just being so peaceful. After it was all over, it was real. Nothing, there was no fake stuff. There was no, you didn't do this or I didn't do that. I did it. It was all about me, and what was so vivid was it was in my mind. I wasn't talking to anybody. I wasn't negotiating. It was all in my mind that I was visualizing. And when I got through, I went, it's over, I knew that I was dead, and I knew I was moving on. I was instructed through my mind, and that person wasn't next to me, but in my mind to get up and start working forward. And I walked up to this white cloud, and an arm came through.
Or the veil,
this much.
The veil in the temple, maybe?
It just came through, and I'll never forget it. It was an arm that was strong. It was somebody that had worked either in the farming industry where his arms were big and his hands, I remember, were strong. They were bigger than my hands. They were a lot more meaty.
A carpenter?
And he reached out like this, and I reached towards his hand.
Sorry, I've shaken hands with a fisherman before. In Seattle, I met a guy, and I'll always remember how steel strong his grip was on mine. His hands were like steel. He was a fisherman, a deep sea fisherman, like the apostles. Their hands were strong, brothers and sisters. Anyway, carpenters and fishermen.
Bigger than my hands. They were a lot more meaty. And he reached out like this, and I reached towards his hand, and he said, "It is not yet your time. You have more things yet to do." And he pulled his arm back through, and I didn't see it again because of the cloud that was in front of me. And At that time, I went back into my body. The doctor said that there was a war going on inside of my body. The war was that I did not want to come back because it was so peaceful. I remember him saying what was going on, why was you all over the place on that table? And I told him that I didn't want to come back. It was too beautiful where I'd been. And come to find out, I had a paper on my chest, and it had pronounced me dead for 20 minutes. And I'd been gone. But I was gone in the most peaceful place that I could have ever went. When they wheeled me out, Connie was out in the hallway. She had no idea that anything had ever happened to me. But for 3 days, I have never had so much peace in my life as it's unbelievable, the peace that I had for 3 days laying in that hospital bed. And the doctor, it's kind of funny, the doctor kept coming back in and checking on me to make sure I was okay, and was extremely nice to me. It was Dr. Skousen.
Just so you're aware, too, Scott's wife, Connie, is sitting right off screen, so you don't think he's talking to himself.
Oh, no. This is my escort, my wife, Connie. Well, we've been married 45 years, and this is something that I have kept very private and sacred in my life because it meant so much to me. How it changed my life. Changed the way I think about things. It changes the way I think about my wife, and what we are together, and that we are one instead of trying to be one-on-one. We're trying to be one. At least I am trying. I'm not perfect. I've got a lot to learn in life. My life has taken me in a whole different direction since I was 28 years old. It's kind of brought me closer to my Father in heaven. I know there's a God. I know without a shadow of a doubt. One thing that I can also say is I'm not afraid of dying, because I know how peaceful it's going to be. My thumb works today. Very good. I call it my bionic thumb. But I love my family. I love my wife.
Thank you so much, Scott, for sharing. There's so many things to be taken from that. One alone, just that you have zero fear of dying in the world's current climate. That alone, if some people could latch onto that and just know, a lot of people have died in the past 2 months, knowing that this life isn't it, that there's more, and that it's the most peaceful you've ever felt. One thing I thought was particularly poignant as well, that idea of never looking back. That's something in our lives too. I think we hold a lot of baggage, and maybe we feel bad about things that we've done. I think that's a really interesting message that you had while you were there, that we can also take away, is that, like, you can always start again. Not everyone is going to have an experience like that, but you can take Scott's word for it on what it's like, and that this life isn't it, and that there are times where you just have to reprioritize, reset, and don't look back. Don't look back at what you've done, aside from using that as inspiration to change your life and to do something better. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, shout out to Prioritize Your Life with Wesley, and this is Wesley, and that was Scott Drummond. And then there's another video where he talks a little bit more about, I don't know, he interviews him again. But I don't know about you. I don't know about you, but this touched me. It touched, and the first time I saw it 2 years ago, it touched me deeply. And I just felt that he wasn't being deceitful, that this truly happened. Anyway, prioritize your life. I will leave the link in the descriptions. And that's it.